Okay, Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Menachos Daf Tzadik Beis, number 92, and we will begin from the Mishnah on Daf Tzadik Beis Amud Aleph. The Mishnah begins, and the discussion today is Smicha. The Mishnah begins, Kol HaKarbonos HaTzibor Ein Behen Smicha. Any communal carbon, you don't do smicha on it. Smicha means you put your hands on the animal. Since it belongs, this is a collective carbon, like a carbon tamid, there's no din smicha on it. There's no, you don't lean on the carbon prior to shchita. Chutz, there's an exception. Min hapar aboal kol mitzvahs, from the par helam davar shel tzibar, that cow that, remember, we learned that if Bezdin made a mistake, let's say they said you could eat chaylev, and they turned out they made a mistake, and Klal Yisrael did the avera at the psak of the Bezdin, the Sanhedrin. So then we bring one communal cow for all the mitzvah. You bring one communal cow. Nobody has to bring their own personal carbon chatas. So there, the pasuk says in Chumash that the Sanhedrin does semicha. You take 3 of the Sanhedrin or 5 of the Sanhedrin out of 71, they do semicha on the cow. Then there's another carbon, a communal carbon, that needs semicha. V'soreh hamishtaleyach. The so'ir that was sent away. Let's just review what was brought on Yom Kippur. As you can see in the picture over here, on Yom Kippur, there was a bull, right? And speaking of twins, there was a twin goats. The bull was the kohen's animal. So that needed, it was his personal animal, so he needed smicha. What about the so'ir hamishtalech? The so'ir, one goat, after they did the lottery, one goat actually was brought as a carbon inside, just like it was a tzibur carbon, just like the bull was the personal kohen gadol's carbon, so the goat was the tzibur's carbon. And then one goat that lost the lottery or won the lottery in another way was sent to the Azazel. As you can see in the picture, they're sending him off to the Azazel, and then they throw him off the mountain. They throw that goat off the mountain. That's called the Seir HaMishtaleach. Prior to, as you can see over here, prior to the Kohen Gadol sending the Seir HaMishtaleach outside Jerusalem to be thrown off the mountain, he did a semicha on that goat. So that was the only other goat that needed, only other carbon seber that needed semicha. The Seir HaMishtaleach. The Seir HaMishtaleach needed a semicha. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says, you're right, the Chumash says that the Seir HaMishtaleach needed a semicha, but that was not done by the owner of the carbon, because that Seir HaMishtaleach was on behalf of Klal Yisrael. The Kohen was not the owner of that goat, and therefore that doesn't count. So what else was there? There was one other carbon seber where the owners have to do smicha. Af seir avodah zara. The goat that was brought, if Bezdin made a mistake regarding avodah zara, if Bezdin paskin that you could do a certain, let's say, service for an avodah zara, and then they realized they made a mistake, so the Bezdin brings a goat for avodah zara. There was smicha done by the Bezdin. So he grew, and the Bezdin is the owner of the carbon. So those are the 2 examples, according to Reb Shimon, of a carbon sibor that needed smicha. It's the par and the seir of the par helam davashad sibor and the seir of avodah zara. Now the Mishnah says, Kol hakabonis yachetun smicha. Anytime you bring a carbon, personal carbon, you need to do smicha. Chutz min habachor ma'amasav pesach. Chor, maser, and pesach, those are personal carbonos that you don't do smicha on. Then the Mishnah says, by Yorish, if you inherited a carbon from your father, if he passed away, soimich, you as the inheritor has to do smicha. Or maybe nesachin, and bring the nesachin, the carbon nesachin, the flour offering and the wine, along with the carbon, because you're the owner, assuming you inherited money from your father, so you can pay for that nesachin. Umeimar, And it's your carbon that if you do tumura on it, it works. The tumura is effective on it. You can exchange it. So Tanur Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Kol HaKarbonas Tzibor Ein Behem Smicha. All Karbonas Smicha, all Karbonas Tzibor, there's no Smicha. Anything, let's say carbon tamid, nothing, no smicha. Chutz min apar abba kol mitzvahs usire avodah zara. The Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says the two exceptions are the par helam davar shel tzibar and the seira avodah zara of the Sanhedrin. If they made a mistake in avodah zara, those two karbonis, as we saw in the Mishnah, need smicha. Rabbi Yehuda says seira avodah zara ein behem smicha. Seira avodah zara does not have smicha. No smicha on it. That's me avi takteyem. So what do I place instead? Sa'ir hamashtalech. I have a goat, the sa'ir hamashtalech, that is needed a smicha. Now I want to point out to you, here's the kohen doing smicha on the goat. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the goat is coming to be mechaper on the kohen. So he's the owner of the goat as well. According to Rabbi Shimon, the goat is not coming to be mechaper on the kohen, and therefore he's not the owner of this goat. He's just doing a smicha, but he's not the owner. What we're talking about when the owner does smicha. The bottom line is that Rabbi Yehuda says, I have to have another carbon tzibor. There have to be two carbon tzibors that need smicha. So the Gemara says, why does it have to be two? Maybe just one carbon tzibor. Par helam davar shel tzibor needed smicha, nothing else. Omar Ravina said, we have a halacha l'maisha mesina, gemiri, shtei smichas b'tzibor. There are two carbonized tzibor that needed smicha. So it's par helam davar shel tzibor is written in the Chumash. So the next one is seir hamishtalech. Omar le Rab Shimon says, v'loi ein smicha ele b'bailim, v'zeh aharon uvarim soimchem bai. The smicha is only done with the owner, and Aaron and him are doing the smicha on the Sar HaMishtaleach, but they're not getting any kapara from the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach. Amalai, so Rabbi Yehuda argued, Aaron and Bottom is chaper boy. Aaron and Bottom do get a kapara from this Sa'ir HaMishtaleach. They do get a kapara. That's part of Aaron. It's not just the Jewish people. Remember, Aaron, in addition, did a vidui on the Sari HaMishtaleach. So the question is, who was the vidui for? The vidui was not only for Klal Yisrael, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it was also on behalf of the Kohen. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yirmiyah explained, they aligned themselves with their reasoning. And the question is, who gets a kapara with the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach? Is it just Klal Yisrael, or is it the Klal Yisrael plus the Kohen? In the Chumash it says over here, the Chiper as a Migdash HaKodesh is oil moed v'samazbeach chichaper. At the end of Parshas Achrei Mois, after the service, after it says what the services of Yom Kippur are, it says that you should have a kapara from the Migdash oil moed as a mizbeach chichaper. They do the Par HaNasa B'fnim, the Seir HaNasa B'fnim, and the Kahanim and all the people got a kapara. So we darshan from the pasuk. The Chipar al Migdash HaKodesh zeh lefnaim lefnim, v'es oil made zeh heichal, mizbeach kamashmoi, yichaper elu ha'azars. In other words, what did this bull, the bull and the chata sapnimi, the goat that was also shechted on Yom Kippur, what did it be mechaper? It was mechaper on a specific avera for tumas migdash of kedusha. If you accidentally was matama the base of migdash or ate kachim and you never knew about it, so that was the point of this kapara. So, and also whether you matama the base of migdash, you were matama the mizbeach or the azara. So those brought kapara. For each one got a kapara. The Kohen got a kapara with the bull. The Jewish people got a kapara with the Sa'ir Hapnimi, the one that was shechted on Yom Kippur. Kahanim kamashmon akol am Yisrael el Yisrael yichaper akol am Yisrael el Yisrael yichaper el Levim. So there, one pasuk, the end of the pasuk is talking about not the the Seir HaPnimi, it's going on the Seir HaMishtaleach. And the Pasuk ends off, Yechaper, the Kahanim, the Levium, and the rest of the Jewish people get a kapara from the Sa'ir Mashtaleach. Chush v'kulan kapara achash m'schakum m'sharshtem. Leach div Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, and that's the point, Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach was mechaper on all Jews, Kahanim, Levium, and Yisraelim. Shimon disagrees. Just like the inner goat was mechaper on the Jewish people, atumas migdash kedashav. Kach dam apar mechaper al kahanim atumas migdash kedashav. So they both agree to that. The cow was mechaper for the kohen on tumas migdash kedashav. But here is where Reb Shimon disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. Kishem shavidi shal sar mishtalech mechaper yisrael b'shar bears. By other averis, the Seir Mishtalech was mechaper on Jewish people, but not Kahanim. Kach vidu shel par mechaper al Kahanim b'shar averis. So the vidu of the par was mechaper on other averis. So therefore, this is where Reb Shimon diverges. He says the Seir Mishtalech was not for the Kahanim; it was for the Bnei Yisrael. The Kahanim got their kapara from the par. Says the Gemara of Rab Shimon, Havadi Hushvi, but doesn't the pasuk say that they all get a kapara from the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach? Because the Torah seems to equate them. Kahanim, Kol Am Yisrael, Yechaper should get a kapara from the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach. So the Gemara says, no, Hushvu the Bnei Kapara. The pasuk says they all get a kapara. Miu Kol Chad V'Chad Mechaper B'Nafshei. Each member gets their own kapara. They get a kapara, but in a different manner. The Yisraelim get a kapara via the Seir Mishtaleach, and the Kahanim get the kapara via the par. And so the Gemara summarizes the whole thing, just like we said. Rabbi Yehuda, Tumas Migdash Kedashav Yisrael Mechapre Bedam Sa'ir Hanas B'Pnim. Tumas Migdash Kedashim, regular Jews get a kapara with the goat that was not done on the inside. The Kahanim b'par shel kohen, Aaron. The Kahanim get their kapara from the power of Aaron. B'shara veres eilu ve'eilu mitchapre b'vidu sari mishtaleach. Everybody gets the kapara from sari mishtaleach. Therefore, the kohen, according to Rabbi Yehuda, was the owner of the sari mishtaleach because he's also getting a kapara of the sari mishtaleach. Ul Rab Shimon b'shara veres name Kahanim b'vidu depar mischatre. According to Rab Shimon, the Kahanim get a kapara from the blood of the and the vidu of the par, they get the kapara, and therefore of other averas. Kidiktani, like it says in the Mishnah Shkolim, Echad Yisrael, Echad Kahanim, Echad Kohen Mashiach, they all get kaparas in Yom Kippur. Ma ben Yisrael Kahanim Kohen Mashiach. What's the difference between a Kohen Gadol and the rest of the Jewish people? El Shadam Chaper Par Mechapal Kahanim to Migdash Koshem. Everybody agrees the dam of the blood of the par brings about atonement on Tumas Migdash Kedoshim. But Rab Shimon Omer, Kishem Shadam Asor Nasa B'Fnim Mechapal Yisrael, Kach Dam Apar Mechapal Kachanim, and Kishem Shavidu Shasar Mishtaleach Mechapal Yisrael, Kach Vidu Shal Par Mechaper Al Kahanim. So the two things were done with this cow, according to Rab Shimon. First, the blood of the cow was mechaper on Tumas Migdash Kedoshav, and the vidui on the cow, because the kohen did a vidui on the cow. He also, as you can see in this picture over here, he's doing a vidui on the cow that brought a kapara from other averes for the kohen, and therefore the Sari Mishtaleach was not on behalf of the kohen. He's not the owner; it's the cow where he did the vidui, and therefore, according to Rab Shimon, since the kohen got his kapara on by the cow, so his smicha on the Sa'ir Mishtaleach was not a smicha as an owner. So therefore, Shimon substitutes the Seir Avodah Zarah as another carbon sibor where the owners, the Sanhedrin, did smicha. As the Gemara is going to bring it to light right now. Tanur Rabbanan. The Par Helam Shadavash and Tzibor, the Chumash says they have a smicha on it. The Sanhedrin did smicha. Par torn smicha. The Ein Sira Avodah Zarah torn smicha de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says when the Bezdin makes a mistake in Avodah Zarah and have to bring a goat, That goat does not need smicha because the pasuk says al rosh par. Only the cow needs smicha, not the goat. Rab Shimon says par ton smicha bezakenim vein sira vaydzar timin smicha bekenim el bahara. Shimon, according to this version of a brisa, says the sira vaydzara needs smicha by zakenim. That doesn't need smicha by zakenim. It only needs Aaron to do smicha on the seirei avodah, like the seirah mishtaleach. That's the mistaken version, which the Gemara is going to say that this brisa is a mistake, because the Gemara asks the question of Raminu. I'll ask you a contradiction. Hachai, the Torah tells you the seirah mishtaleach needs smicha. Hachai toin smicha. The seirah mishtaleach needs smicha. The ain seirei avodah to smicha de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda learns that the seirei avodah does not need smicha from this pasuk hachai, not like a Roisha par that he learned in the first brisa. And then the second brisa says, and additionally, Shimon Chai Tom Smicha by Aaron, the Sira Mishtaleach needs Smicha by Aaron, by the Kohen Gadol. The Ein Sira, we go to Amabeis, the Ein Sira by Zara to Smicha by Aaron, Elabaz Canaan. The Sira by Zara does not need a Smicha only by Aaron, only by the Sanhedrin. So what is it? Who does smicha on the sirei avodah zarah? Is it Aaron, or is it the Sakanim? Is it the Sanhedrin? So we have a contradiction between two brises. So Amar Rav Sheshes says, are you going to tell me the first brisa was the corrected version? That the Kayan Gadol does smicha on a sirei avodah zarah? Rab Shimon says, smicha b'ba'alim b'inim. You have to be the owner of the carbon to do smicha, and the Kohen Gadol is not the owner of the seir avodah zarah. Ela turitz hachi, and here's the bottom line, and everything will make sense. Hapar, the Torah tells you the par helm dava shatzibar, par and tar and smicha, the ain seir avodah zarah to smicha de Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says clearly the seir avodah zarah does not need smicha. Rab Shimon says, Sa'ir Mishtaleach needs smicha, hachai toin smicha ba'aron. The ain sir avodah zarah tumun smicha ba'aron elabaz kanim. There's an exception. Kohen Gadol does smicha even though he's not the owner on the sirei of the Sa'ir Mishtaleach on Yom Kippur, but the sir avodah zarah was done not by Aharon but by the Sanhedrin, who are the owners of the sirei avodah zarah. The Hachi Kama Le Rab Shimon Rabbi Yehuda. This is what Rab Shimon told Rabbi Yehuda. Sirei avodah zarah by smicha. Sirei avodah zarah needs smicha, and it needs smicha by the Sanhedrin. V'yishmiyalach. If you heard the loy by smicha that it didn't need smicha, what you meant to hear is not that it doesn't need smicha at all, but aharanu deshmiyalach, that it doesn't need smicha with the Aharon the Kohen Gadol. It doesn't need smicha by the Kohen Gadol, but it does need smicha by the Zakanim, by the Sanhedrin. Because there's a pasuk that's chai that only the Sira Mishtaleach needed smicha by the Kohen Gadol, and nothing else needed, no other korban needed smicha by the Kohen Gadol. Says the Gemara. So now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, basically we have two karbanos that needed smicha by their owners. The par helam davash tzibur by this, which is done smicha by the Sanhedrin, and the seir hamishtalech, which the owner of the seir hamishtalech is the kohen, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're getting kapara via the seir hamishtalech. So then, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why do I need a pasuk to exclude a seir avodah zarah if the halacha of Moshe Messina said that there were only two karbanos tzibur that need smicha, not three? So of course I know seir avodah zarah won't need smicha. Rabbi Yehuda, lamali lemutes krakra. Why do I need a pasuk to exclude the sirei avodah zarah that doesn't need smicha? The pasuk says only by two of them need smicha, param davash tzibur and the sirei mishtaleach. And v'amar Ravina said gemiri. We have a halacha l'Moshe Messina shtei smichas b'tzibur, that there are only two karbanos tzibur that needed smicha. And says the Gemara gir ba'alma. That's not really a halacha l'Moshe Messina. That's just a quote, but it's not really halacha mashmi. Technically, had it not been for the miut, not for the exclusion, I would have said that there were three karbanos that needed smicha. That's why you need the exclusion of sirei avodah zarah. Now the Gemara asks in reverse. Rab Shimon only saw from a chai that the Sirei Avodah Zarah doesn't need smicha by the Kohen Gadol, but it doesn't say it. Maybe it doesn't need smicha at all. So the question the Gemara is asking: Sirei Avodah Zarah, the boy smicha menalan. How do I know that it needed smicha at all? Maybe a Sirei Avodah Zarah does not need smicha. And says the Gemara, Nafkalam, we learned it from another pasuk. But the Tanya, it says Brisa, when the president of a shevet does an avera, just him, the Torah tells you he doesn't bring a female goat, he brings a male goat. And the Torah tells you the president, the nasi, he puts his hand on the head of the goat. That told you that the Nachshon, when he brought his goat on the inauguration of the Mishkan, he also needed smicha. But Rab Shimon says the Rabbi Sirei Avodah Zarah l'smicha. When that includes the Rosh Hashanah, another Sirei, a Sirei Avodah Zarah, when Bezdin makes a mistake, that is included in a smicha. Rab Shimon used to say, Kol chatash nichas dam lefnim tuna smicha. Anytime you bring a korban chatas and you sprinkle the blood in the heichal, in the sanctuary, that korban needed smicha. So Sirei Avodah Zarah is a sprinkling on the pareiches. You sprinkle the blood on the pareiches, so therefore it needed smicha. Says the Gemara, Lama li lemem shahaya. Why do you have to say Rab Shimon? He darshans it from a pasuk. Rab Shimon used to say, just end the story. Rabbi Sirei Avodah Zarah l'smicha. And says the Gemara Simona Ba'alma, just to remember it, because they're both marber a soyer for a smicha. So if you want to remember who said what, remember the famous rule that Rab Shimon said: any chatas that you're sprinkling the blood on the inside needs smicha. So must be Rab Shimon was the one that said Sirei Avodah Zarah needs smicha. Says the Gemara, ve'ema, let us say, so'ir hanasa b'fnim. Maybe it's coming to teach you the so'ir hanasa b'fnim needs smicha. How do you know? Maybe it's teaching you this, the so'ir of the one of the goats that were shechted on Yom Kippur. Maybe that needed a smicha. Answers the Gemara, no. Dumya the seer nasi, it has to be similar to the seer of the president. The mechaper al averis mitzvahs yedua. That's mechaper on averis that you know about. The seer hanasa b'fnim was mechaper on averis that you never knew that you did the avera. So therefore, tumas mikdash of kedashav, which you never found out you did the avera. So therefore, it's not included in smicha. Says the Gemara, according to Ravina, then why do I need a pasuk to teach you that the Seir Avodah Zarah, according to Rab Shimon, needs a smicha? Don't we have a halacha l'maishem Sinai that there are only two smichas b'tzibur, and Par Helam Davar Tzibur is one of them? And so what are you gonna include as the next one? It must be the Seir of the Seir Avodah Zarah. So why do I need a pasuk to say, oh, the Seir Avodah Zarah needs smicha from Samach Yada al Rosh Hashanah? And says the Gemara, I need the pasuk and I need the halacha l'maishem Sinai. The imikra, if I just had the pasuk to teach you that the imikra, if the pasuk would have said, if you just have the pasuk v'samach yadai al rosh havamina zivchei shal mitziba kikasha masnisin the hachpirka the chol menachos baras amar Rab Shimon shleisha minem tiunim shalosh mitzvos leisa b'kal b'chav yizav shal mitziba tun smicha mekal b'choyma mam sham yochashem tun tivin chayim tun smicha chayim. So I would have said, if you have just psukim, I would say that if you have just psukim, I would say that to include any shalmei tzibor that was brought on Shavuos, that also needed smicha. Just like every shlama needs a smicha, I would think the shalmei tzibor, which had less, which had more stuff associated with it, it needed tnufa, machayim. So therefore, I would think it needed also smicha. So that's why Yitzrach Hilkasa, the Halacha L'Maishem Sinai tells you that there are only two. You can't just say the Shalmei Tzibor needs a smicha because you're going to come up with a kal v'chayma. The Halacha L'Maishem Sinai says there's only two. The Ime Hilkasa. So if I just have the Halacha L'Maishem Sinai, Lo Yedei Hayininu, I would never know which one it is. maybe it's parhel davish tzibor and the zivchesh and the shalmei tzibor, and then you have two, and not the sirei avodah zara. Kamash malam that the other two, the other one is a goat. The seer is dumi the seer nasi. It's not like a sheep of the shalmei tzibor. The mechaper hamabeis yidua. It's like similar to the seer nasi. That's mechaper known averis, and not the seer anasa b'fnim. So it must be it's a seer avodah zara. So again, we just concluded the bryce. We concluded the machlokes between Yehuda and Shimon. Everybody agrees the parhel and davar shetziba needs smicha. Everybody agrees the seer mishtaleach needs smicha. The question was whether the seer avodah zara needs smicha. Rabbi Yehuda said no. And Reb Shimon says, I have an extra riboy that says it needs smicha, and that was also the halacha of Sinai, that there were only two karbanis tziva that needed smicha, which the second one that's not in the chumash was the sirei avodah zara. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. B'ez Hashem.